While recovering from back surgery, I could barely bend over to put on my socks. My wife walked in, took one look at me struggling, and scoffed, "You're like a broken appliance, useless and taking up space." When I didn't respond, she added, "Honestly, I don't even know why I bother coming home." I got angry, but smiled through the pain and said, "I'll be fine." Last night, she regretted everything she said. You ever have one of those moments where someone says something and you're not sure if you heard them right? Like, maybe your brain is playing tricks on you because what they just said was so messed up? Yeah, that happened to me 3 weeks ago. For context, I, 38, had a pretty gnarly back surgery 6 weeks ago. Herniated disc from lifting a heavy box the wrong way. Not going into too much detail about what I do for work, but let's just say physical labor has been my bread and butter for almost 2 decades. Anyway, I've been stuck at home recovering. The first month was brutal. Couldn't even get to the bathroom without wanting to scream. Things got a bit better by week 5, but I still couldn't bend over without feeling like someone was jabbing knives into my spine. So there I was, sitting on the edge of our bed, trying to put on my damn socks. Such a simple thing, right? Something you do every day without thinking. But when your back is fucked, it becomes this whole ordeal. Pamela, 36F, my wife of 8 years, walks in and just stands there watching me struggle. I'm sweating, grinding my teeth, using this grabber thing the hospital gave me to try and hook my sock. Not exactly my proudest moment. And then she says it, "You're like a broken appliance, useless and taking up space." I froze. Like, completely froze. Did my wife of 8 years just compare me to a broken toaster or something? I looked up at her, thinking maybe she was joking in that dark humor way some couples have. But nope, her face was dead serious, annoyed even. When I didn't respond, "Honestly, what do you even say to that?" She doubled down. "Honestly, I don't even know why I bother coming home." That's when something inside me just snapped, not in a rage way, more like a switch flipped. I smiled through the pain, told her I'll be fine, but inside, I was done. The thing is, our marriage hasn't been sunshine and rainbows for a while now. Once I got hurt and the paycheck stopped being as regular, Pamela started showing this side I never knew existed. The eye rolls when I asked for help, the sighs when I mentioned the medical bills, the constant reminders that she was carrying all the weight now. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like shit, useless, a burden. But hearing her actually say it out loud, that hit different. After she left for work, I just sat there, sock still in my hand, thinking about how we got here. When did my wife start seeing me as an appliance rather than a partner? When did in sickness and in health turn into you better be financially useful or you're garbage? My brother Jared came by that afternoon to check on me. He could tell something was off, and eventually, I spilled everything. His reaction told me all I needed to know. The look of absolute shock on his face confirmed this wasn't normal marriage stress talk. "Bro, that's straight up emotional abuse," he said. "You wouldn't talk to a dog like that, let alone your husband who's recovering from surgery." He helped me put things in perspective, made me realize this wasn't the first time she'd been cruel, just the most blatant. All those jokes about me being the weaker link, comments about other guys who make more money, comparing me to her friends' husbands who have real careers. "You done?" It had been building up. What really got me thinking was when Jared asked a simple question. "What would you tell me if Vicky talked to me like that?" Vicky's his wife, sweetest person ever. I immediately said I'd tell him to stand up for himself, that nobody deserves that kind of treatment. Funny how clear things become when you step outside yourself. That night, I decided to start documenting everything. Call me paranoid, but something told me I needed proof of how she was treating me. So I installed a voice recorder app on my phone. Didn't have to wait long. The very next day, she came home from shopping with bags from fancy stores BTW despite our supposed tight budget because of my medical bills. And I asked if she could grab me some water since I was doing my physical therapy exercises. God, it's like having a child. At least kids eventually grow up and stop needing you for everything. Caught that one crystal clear on the recording. Over the next week, I got plenty more. Complaints about having to work so hard while I lay around all day, as if recovery is a vacation. A phone conversation with her friend where she called me damaged goods, her telling me that other wives would have left by now. Each comment was like another brick in a wall I was building between us, mentally preparing myself for what I needed to do. The financial stuff was what really pushed me over the edge though. While looking for an insurance document on her laptop, which she left open, I found our bank statements. Turns out, while I've been pinching pennies and feeling guilty about medical expenses, she's been transferring chunks of our emergency fund to her personal account. The same account she's been using for spa days, expensive lunches, and online shopping. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I called my mom, Mabel, who's always been straight with me, even when it hurts. I explained everything, and she confirmed what I was already feeling. This marriage wasn't just going through a rough patch. It was toxic. "Anthony," she said, "marriage is about lifting each other up when one falls down, not kicking them while they're already hurting." Mom helped me get in touch with a lawyer friend who gave me some free advice about protecting, especially since I'm vulnerable right now with the injury and limited income. Meanwhile, I started being strategic. I redirected my disability payments to a new account, made copies of important documents, collected evidence of her spending habits versus her public complaints about supporting me. Throughout all this, the hardest part was pretending everything was normal, smiling through her jabs, thanking her for the bare minimum help, acting like I didn't see her contempt. Yesterday marked 3 weeks since the broken appliance comment. 3 weeks of planning, documenting, and coming to terms with the fact that my marriage was over. Pamela came home late tipsy from happy hour with coworkers. She started in again about how unfair her life had become, how she was stuck with half a husband. I sat there nodding, recording everything on my phone in my pocket. Then she said something that confirmed I was making the right decision. Sometimes I wish you'd never wake up from that surgery. Would have been easier to collect insurance and start over with someone who can actually be a man. I think she expected me to either explode or break down crying. Instead, I just looked at her calmly and said, I think we need to talk about our future. The look on her face when she realized I wasn't going to just take it anymore was something I'll never forget. That was last night. Today, everything changes. I've made some calls, set some things in motion. My brother is coming over to help with the next steps. She has no idea what's coming, but trust me, she's about to regret every single word. I'll update when I can. But for now, just know that being physically broken doesn't mean you have to let someone break your spirit too. Update 1. First off, thanks for all the comments and DMs on my last post. NGL. It helped knowing I wasn't overreacting to the whole broken appliance situation. Some of you called it emotional abuse right away. Took me longer to accept that label. But, yeah, you were right. So it's been about 2 weeks since my last post. A lot has happened, and I'm still processing most of it. But I promised an update. So here goes. The morning after I posted, I woke up early despite barely sleeping. My back was killing me. Stress makes the pain worse. Go figure. But I had this weird sense of calm, like when you finally decide to jump off the high dive after hesitating for ages. Terrifying, but also relieving. Pamela had already left for work, not even bothering to check if I needed anything before she went. That had become our new normal. I spent the morning on the phone with my sister, Vicky, who drove over immediately after hearing what was going on. She's always been the practical one in our family, and she showed up with breakfast and a notebook, ready to make a game plan. We spent hours going through our finances on my laptop. What we found made me feel sick. Beyond the transfers to her personal account, I'd already discovered, Pamela had opened a completely separate credit card in her name and had been putting charges on it for months. Fancy restaurants when she claimed to be working late, online shopping sprees, even a weekend trip with her friends that she told me was covered by her work, all while making me feel guilty for the cost of my pain medications. The worst part, she'd been skimming from the account where I'd been putting aside money for my mom's assisted living facility. Mom doesn't know, and she never will if I can help it. Vicky helped me document everything, taking screenshots and saving them to a cloud drive only I could access. She also helped me make an appointment with a divorce attorney for the following week. No going back now. That night when Pamela came home, I decided to start phase 1 of what my brother Jared jokingly called Operation Broken Appliance. I was done being the emotional punching bag, but I wasn't going to stoop to her level. Instead, I was simply going to show her exactly what useless looked like. See, despite my injury, I'd still been handling a ton of stuff around the house. The bills, the maintenance calls, keeping track of appointments, ordering groceries online, dealing with our landlord, all the invisible work that keeps a household running. Pamela seemed to think dinner occasionally and a paycheck was all she contributed to our marriage. Time to enlighten her. When she asked about dinner, I just shrugged and said I hadn't ordered anything. She made some snarky comment about how I couldn't even handle food delivery, and I just nodded and said, yeah. Guess I'm pretty useless right now. The next morning, the shower drain clogged, something I normally would have fixed in 10 minutes. When she complained, I just shrugged and said, I couldn't bend down with my back. Maybe call a plumber? She huffed about the expense and ended up going to her mom's to shower before work. Day by day, I just stopped doing all the things I'd been pushing through, pain to accomplish. The Wi-Fi bill came due, and I didn't pay it. Service cut out during her favorite show. The car started making that weird noise again, the one I usually took care of before it became a problem. The grocery delivery I normally scheduled didn't arrive. The trash didn't go out. With each small domestic crisis, her frustration grew. And each time, I just gave her a calm look and reminded her of her own words. Broken appliance, remember? Can't expect much from damaged goods. The real wake-up call came when the toilet in our only bathroom backed up on a Sunday night. Usually, I grab the plunger and handle it, bad back or not, because that's what partners do. This time, I just hobbled to my brother's place down the street to use his bathroom and stayed there overnight, leaving her with the mess. I got 12 texts and 6 missed calls that night. I responded to none of them. Things escalated when she found out I'd moved my disability payments to my new private account. She came home early from work, face all red, waving her phone with the bank app open. She demanded to know where our money was going. I pointed out very calmly that it was my disability money, not ours. Just like the money she'd been transferring to her private account was apparently hers, not ours. That's when she realized I knew about her secret spending. The look on her face shifted from anger to this weird panic. For the first time since my surgery, she seemed to understand she was on shaky ground. Meanwhile, I had my consultation with the attorney. Turns out, documenting emotional abuse and financial infidelity can make a huge difference in divorce proceedings. Being the one with medical issues that she openly mocked also didn't look great for her. My recordings were apparently legal in our state since our home is a one-party consent situation. The attorney advised me to continue gathering evidence, but warned me not to empty joint accounts completely or do anything that could be seen as financial abandonment. Solid advice. I wasn't looking to screw her over just to protect myself and get out with my dignity. My follow-up doctor's appointment showed my back was actually healing well despite the stress. The doctor mentioned that attitude and emotional state can impact physical recovery and asked if everything was okay at home. For the first time, I was honest about what was happening. He added a note to my medical records about potential domestic stress affecting my recovery, more documentation for the divorce. Last weekend was the breaking point. Pamela's car wouldn't start, that issue I'd been ignoring, and she missed some important brunch with her friends. She came storming in, blaming me for not taking care of the car maintenance like I always did. I just looked at her and asked why she would expect a broken appliance to fix her car. The words hung in the air between. For a brief moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition maybe? Shame? But it was quickly replaced by defensiveness. She started bringing up everything she'd sacrificed for me during my recovery. How she was the one working while I did nothing. How unfair it was that she had to carry all the weight. That's when I played her the recording. The one where she said she wished I hadn't woken up from surgery so she could collect insurance and find a real man. I didn't play it to be, I played it because I needed her to hear herself, to understand exactly what she'd become. She went pale, then tears, then anger again. The usual cycle of someone caught being their worst self. What followed was a long, exhausting conversation, the first honest one we'd had in months. She admitted she resented becoming the primary earner, said she felt trapped, complained about how her friends' partners made more money and gave them better lifestyles. Like, somehow, my injury was a personal insult to her social standing. I let her talk, and when she was done, I told her I'd filed for divorce. She didn't believe me at first, thought it was some kind of bluff to scare her. But when I showed her the paperwork my attorney had prepared, something shifted. Reality finally hit her. She spent the night at her mother's. When she came back the next day, she was different, subdued, almost apologetic, started doing small things like bringing me water without being asked, offering to help with my exercises, too little, too late, but interesting to observe. My brother and sister came over yesterday to help me pack her things while she was at work. We didn't take everything, just her personal items, neatly organized in boxes. We left them in the garage along with a note explaining that I needed space and thought it best if she stayed with her mom until we sorted things out legally. I changed the Wi-Fi password too. Small? Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Definitely. When she came home and found her stuff in the garage lab, she completely lost it, rang the doorbell for 20 straight minutes, called me every name in the book, threatened legal action. Good luck with that. Then when none of that worked, broke down sobbing on our front step. I watched through the security camera on my phone feeling nothing. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just empty. Like watching a stranger's meltdown. She's been blowing up my phone all day with texts ranging from apologetic to threatening. I haven't responded to any of them. My attorney advised radio silence except through official channels. The oddest part, now that I've stood up for myself, my back pain seems more manageable. The doctor said stress can amplify pain, and I guess he was right. I'm staying with Jared for now while things get sorted. My sister's helping me find a small apartment that will work with my mobility issues. Mom's been checking in daily, worried, but supportive. It's weird rebuilding your life at 38. Never thought I'd be starting over, but better this than spending another day being someone's broken appliance. I'll update again after the divorce proceedings get rolling. For now, I'm just taking it day by day. Finally, update. It's weird to look back at yourself from a few months ago and barely recognize that person. Not in some deep philosophical way, just in the practical everyday sense. The guy who couldn't put on his own socks without crying in pain now regularly goes for 30-minute walks. The guy who silently accepted being called a broken appliance now stands his ground without hesitation. Change happens slowly until suddenly it doesn't. For those just catching up, I'm the dude whose wife called him useless in a broken appliance while recovering from back surgery. In my last update, I'd moved out, started divorce proceedings, and Pamela was having a meltdown on our front porch after finding her stuff packed in the garage. A lot has happened since then. The week after I moved to Jared's place, Pamela switched tactic. The angry text stopped, replaced by these weird, overly sweet messages, like someone had kidnapped my actual wife and replaced her with an AI chatbot program to sound caring. She was suddenly concerned about my recovery, asking if I needed anything, reminiscing about good times, classic love bombing. According to the therapist I started seeing, I didn't respond to any of it. My attorney had been crystal clear. Communicate only through official channels. Every message, every voicemail went straight into my evidence folder. Then came the flying monkey. First was her mom calling me, trying to convince me that Pamela was just stressed, didn't mean those horrible things. I respected my mother-in-law enough to be straight with, told her I had recordings of everything, including Pamela wishing I hadn't woken up from surgery. Dead silence on the phone after that. Next came the mutual friends. One after another, they reached out, some genuinely concerned, others clearly fed Pamela's twisted version of events. I got tired of explaining myself individually, so I created a private group chat, told them I appreciated their concern, but that they didn't have the full picture, and I wasn't going to badmouth Pamela to win people over. Most backed off. A few didn't. Those few got blocked. About 3 weeks after moving out, I got a message from Pamela's sister, Santiago, was having a small dinner party and had invited both of us, not realizing our situation. Apparently, Pamela was planning to attend and hadn't told her family about our separation. I thought about skipping it, but then had a better idea. Time for the recordings. I showed up to the dinner a little late. The look on Pamela's face when I walked in, absolute panic. Santiago hugged me, asked how my recovery was going. I said better every day, which was true. The physical therapy was finally working, and I could move without constant pain. Dinner was awkward AF. Pamela kept trying to act like everything was normal, doing this weird performance of the supportive wife, asking if I was comfortable, if I needed another pillow for my back. Her sister and brother-in-law exchanged confused glances. They knew something was off, but couldn't put their finger on it. After dessert, Santiago asked how things were going with it. Before Pamela could jump in with some fake story, I calmly said we were getting divorced. The room went dead silent. Pamela immediately tried damage control, spinning some tale about how my back pain had made me depressed and irrational, how she'd been nothing but supportive during my recovery, how shocked and blindsided she was by all this. That's when I pulled out my phone. I told everyone I wasn't there to create drama, but I also wasn't going to let Pamela rewrite history. Asked if they wanted to know the real reason our marriage ended. Santiago nodded, looking genuinely concerned. I played 3 recordings. Just 3. The broken appliance comment. The one where she complained about having to work so hard while I lay around all day. And the kicker, her wishing I hadn't woken up from surgery so she could collect insurance money. I'll never forget the looks on their faces. Santiago had tears in her eyes. Her husband looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. And Pamela looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her own voice, her own words, playing back in a room full of people who loved her. When the recordings ended, I didn't say anything. Just put my phone away and waited. Santiago asked Pamela if that was really her voice. Pamela tried to claim the recordings were edited or taken out of context. Her brother-in-law, who works in audio production, shook his head, said they sounded completely authentic. I left shortly after thanking them for dinner. Santiago hugged me at the door, whispered that she was sorry. I told her none of this was her fault. The next day, my phone blew up with messages from Pamela's family members. Apparently, after I left, Pamela had a complete meltdown, admitting everything but blaming it on the stress of being the sole provider while I recovered. Her family wasn't buying it. Meanwhile, the divorce was moving forward. The financial discovery process revealed even more than I'd originally found. Not only had Pamela been draining our joint savings, she'd also racked up over $20,000 in credit card debt in the last year alone. Debt she'd been hiding from me, designer clothes, high-end makeup, weekend trips with friends she told me were work events. My attorney was practically giddy. In our state, hiding assets and deceiving a spouse about finances is taken very seriously in divorce proceedings, especially when one partner is medically vulnerable. The real turning point came during mediation. Pamela showed up with this aggressive attorney, ready to fight for her fair share of our assets. Then my attorney played more recordings and presented the financial evidence. It was like watching someone deflate in real time. By the end of the 4-hour session, Pamela had agreed to a settlement that basically gave me everything I asked for, my full share of our legitimate joint assets, no alimony either way, and she would be responsible for the secret credit card debt she'd accumulate. The judge signed off on everything last week. 8 years of marriage, dissolved in a 10-minute hearing. Throughout all of this, my back kept getting better. The physical therapist says I'm recovering faster than expected now that the stress is gone. I can bend over to put on my own socks now. Small victory, but it feels huge. I found a small apartment with an elevator and no stairs. Jared and Vicky helped me move in last weekend. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. No one here calls me useless or broken. My mom came to visit yesterday. She brought homemade food and fussed over my furniture arrange. She didn't say I told you so about Pamela, even though she never fully warmed to her. Instead, she helped me hang pictures and set up my new smart home system so I can control lights and stuff on days when my back acts up. I ran into Pamela at the grocery store 2 days ago. Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. She looked rough, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She tried to start a conversation, asked how I was doing. I kept it brief but civil, told her I was doing fine, which was true. As I was leaving, she blurted out that she missed me, that she was sorry, that she'd been in therapy and realized how toxic she'd become. I just nodded and said, I hope therapy helped her become a better person. Then I wished her well and walked away. No anger, no satisfaction in her pain, just nothing. It was like talking to a distant acquaintance from high school. Later that night, scrolling through Netflix trying to find something to watch, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore, not at Pamela, not at myself for putting up with her treatment for so long, just free. My therapist says that's a good sign, that holding on to anger only hurts yourself and I'm not quite at forgiveness yet, but I'm getting to indifference, which is its own kind of. It's been 11 weeks since my surgery now. The doctor says I'm healing well, ahead of schedule. I've started swimming at the local gym, best exercise for back recovery. Sometimes I catch people looking at my surgical scar in the locker room, but I don't mind. Scars are just evidence you've survived something. I'm taking things day by day. Made some new friends at a back pain support group I found through a Reddit recommendation. Started cooking again. Nothing fancy, just simple meals that don't require standing too long. Downloaded a dating app, but haven't opened it yet. Baby steps. Vicky thinks I should write about my experience for one of those self-help blogs. I'm not sure about that, but sharing here has been therapeutic. Knowing I'm not alone, that other people have survived similar situations makes a difference. Last night, I was watching TV when an appliance commercial came on. It was for some fancy smart refrigerator that basically does everything but cook the food for you. The announcer called it the hardest working appliance in your home, and I laughed. Actually laughed out loud alone in my apartment because that's what I was to Pamela. Just an appliance, something useful until it breaks down. Not a partner, Not a person with feelings and value beyond what I could provide. She thought I was a broken appliance taking up space. Turns out, I was the foundation holding everything together, and now she gets to live with that realization every day. Me? I'm nobody's appliance anymore, just a guy who can finally put on his own socks again.